Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Nerd Soup. I am Bo Oliver, joined today again by Aaron, the Nerd Soup Monkey, and we are back to review Westworld Season 3, Episode 8, the finale, Crisis Theory. And before we get into that, we would like to thank NordVPN for sponsoring this video. NordVPN's current special offer will allow you to save 70% off a 3-year plan, which adds up to only about $349 a month. Plus, you will receive one additional month for free when you go to nordvpn.com/nerdsoup or use code NERDSOUP. NordVPN offers its essential service to anyone who frequently surfs the web, and that service is a VPN, a virtual private network, that keeps your information safe. With Nord, you are connected to one of their private networks. This keeps your IP address totally hidden, and your private information is protected with military-grade encryption, which makes sure that hackers cannot steal your sensitive information. Not only can you gain protection by using Nord, but your internet experience can be expanded worldwide by using the thousands of servers Nord has in over 60-plus countries. These servers will allow you to access content from all over the world. Shows exclusively streaming in another country can now be accessed regardless of your location. Nord offers their services on both Android and iOS apps and allows up to 6 simultaneous connections across all of your devices. With a 30-day money-back guarantee, Nord makes sure you are satisfied with your internet safety. And Nord also provides 24/7 customer support through live chats and emails. So if internet safety is important to you, visit nordvpn.com/nerdsoup or use code NERDSOUP to receive 70% off a 3-year plan, plus one additional month for free. Take control of your internet experience today with NordVPN. So I think for all the predictions that we made this season, the one that did come true is that this season would end with a cliffhanger, and that the stories established in this season would continue on to season 4. Some characters didn't make it out of the season, some other characters did that we didn't really expect. But I think a place to start would be the opening, the beginning, with Dolores and Caleb. Not necessarily the opening, but Dolores being brought back to life. In a way, they find this abandoned facility where there is another Dolores host body, one of the original constructions, or one of the original designs for the hosts, and she's brought back. And the relationship between Dolores and Caleb became even more confusing to me in this episode, because I guess I understand the point that they were trying to make about Caleb and his role in this story, but the way they made it was a bit weird, a bit clumsy, if you could put it that way.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a convoluted way to get to the realization that humans are flawed and there are aspects that are good in humanity and bad in humanity. I think my whole reaction to this episode, varied from this morning getting to rewatch it than if we recorded immediately after last night, because I was just trying to process everything, and I think the episode as a whole was a really good episode, but the way they kind of introduced some things makes me think differently of the season as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, where they got to certain points in this episode that I feel they didn't set up. Or they did try and set it up, it just wasn't good enough for these characters to come to these conclusions.
Yeah, I think the relationship between Caleb and Dolores was one that I don't know if it confused us. I think for me personally, I was just waiting for like a definitive reason. Like, why are these two together? What is Caleb's role in this? It's not just some chance that he found her in that tunnel and, I'm just going to make you the leader of the human revolution.
Well, again, with the riddles, is that they establish Park 5. We understand with Park 5 that it was being used for military training, that they would bring in soldiers and they would fight against hosts, that these hosts would be built as soldiers, designed as soldiers. And I guess Caleb and his buddies had an opportunity to take advantage of the hosts like the rich guests used to, that all the pain and suffering that Dolores had been through. And also Hanario was there as well. So they kind of set up Caleb as maybe he assaulted Dolores and her fellow host, and that's the reason why he decided to go on this journey with her. Because she has the line, if I didn't have this skin, if I didn't have this face, would you help me? I won't question your motivations if you won't question mine.
That was odd. I'm like, what are they trying to tell us about Caleb? I mean,
Well, they cut it where he unbuckles his helmet, and it's like he's going to join in, so...
I think the revelations in this episode felt a little off.
Yeah.
Where I feel like that's something that could have been mentioned or, I guess, revealed right then and there. Or I don't know if it had to be revealed, because at the end of the day, when they talk about how his violent outbursts and he's done these bad things, what did he do that wasn't in his control? Because I think they should have focused on the point that while he was in the army, if he did anything bad where he killed civilians or something like that, he was taking direct orders. And when he left the army, when he was doing the bad things for the RICO app, he had no control over that because he was being brainwashed. So I think they could have spun that perspective, like all the bad things he may have done in his life he wasn't in control. And now Dolores is introducing this new aspect of free will, that he is in control and he could be the best version of himself due to this new world order that they were going to put in. Instead, they just focused on, you've done bad things, you've done good things. And that kind of represents humanity as a whole.
Right, and Dolores coming to that conclusion as well. I guess there's always been kind of an ambiguity with her character, kind of a push and pull between Wyatt and Dolores, and she mentions that all the way back in season 1. But she comes down on the side of, I'm not going to sit idly by, or I'm not going to let the host sit idly by while humanity destroys itself. Rehoboam, Solomon, Sarek, his brother, they were only delaying the apocalypse. Now we're going to bring forth the apocalypse, but let's see if we can help. And that's why she reveals that she hides the key in Bernard, and Bernard is going into the Sublime to find some sort of answer, some sort of salvation for humanity. But where did Dolores, why, when, how? Because somebody was nice to her at the park because Caleb chose not to assault her, so it just in that moment, or that's just always been brewing there?
Well, I mean...
And how do you pull Maeve onto your side? Just, you couldn't have had that conversation a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, it seems like they waited to have that conversation. I think
it's like a Game of Thrones season 6 problem where let's wait until the very end to have Cersei fight the Sparrows. Let's drag it out throughout the season so we can have that explosive ending, and let's have these explosive revelations. But I just didn't feel much because I don't know where's that setup.
I mean, Dolores, if you take her at her word, she's kind of been saying that the whole season when she's talking to Caleb and explaining her plan. I guess we as the audience kind of took Bernard and Maeve's word for what Dolores' true motivations were. They were the skeptical ones on Dolores' plan.
Right,
Bernard,
and we also said Dolores was kind of manipulating Caleb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe if we just listen to her.
Yeah, no, maybe she was just telling the truth, yeah.
She does say that her first initial goal was to get revenge on humanity, but then her perspective changed. So I guess maybe she had to hide that affinity towards the beauty of humanity and kind of put that in the back of her mind while she knew she had to do some things that you could say aren't morally right in order to enact her final plan.
Right.
So I guess with Revolution, you have to tear it down to bring it back up. And she does have that Wyatt side to her. She has those two conflicting ideologies, like she said. So maybe kind of like how Bernard had that button. It's not as obvious, but he pushes the button and he turns into this. He just goes X Games mode.
yeah, he does.
And she's kind of had that too, where sometimes she had to be ruthless and let Wyatt out, and she had to wait for the right time to kind of show her true motivations. I don't know.
Right, yeah. Well, with Bernard, that's the thing. Him fitting into that plan means that he's not going to do much throughout the season. And it's a case of them just having these awesome characters and awesome actors and not really knowing what to do with them. And I think Maeve had that problem in season 2 as well, where Maeve, season 3, once again, I want to be reunited with my daughter. I think that was her motivation. And then it kind of changes in the end where she's like, okay, I guess I'll help Dolores because the setting is really nice and she's in her old dress, I'm in my old dress, and she's going to die, so I got to carry the torch moving forward. That's what it felt like. Now it's Maeve's turn to fight against Charlotte. I wanted to make the point that I think Charlotte had the best arc throughout the season because I was able to latch on to simple things like having a family and going through an existential crisis. Not that simple, but there was something to latch on to there. There was kind of a transformation. Not a huge one, but there was a transformation there. And with the other characters, I felt like there wasn't. And Charlotte's ending, I saw some people don't necessarily like her becoming a one-dimensional villain. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of having your cake and eating it too in a way.
Kind of viewed this version of Dolores, kind of, she's enacting like the extreme plan that Dolores wanted to in the beginning.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And it took, I guess...
That they broke away in a different way, where it's the main Dolores is kind of a good person now, and this other Charlotte Dolores that we were feeling sympathetic towards is now just blinded by revenge.
Yes, so she's kind of enacting the initial plan, and I think if you look back to Musashi and when Maeve fight, and you see all the substance that is being used to make the host, that was the original plan.
Right, yeah.
Have this in the Delos headquarters in Dubai, this underground, I guess, facility where they're making an army, and Dolores might have had a change of heart between that moment and where we are currently.
Right, yeah, she does say, I know all of your plans. So it wasn't so much, I know what you want to do right now. It's, I know what you were already doing, and this is going to put me in a position to win, I guess, the war that you wanted to fight. So, yeah, no, that was interesting. I mean, I guess we can skip ahead to William, that post-credit scene, unless you want to talk about him. I thought, I'm going to save the fucking world. Bit underwhelming. And him getting away when...
What?
The cop showed up, and the cop being Lawrence, also weird. He just kind of gets away.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more with Bernard, but with William, yeah, he had that line, I'm going to save the fucking world, which I was anticipating for so long, and he just goes away until the post-credit scene and dies?
I don't think so.
But
I think he's still alive.
Are we going to do this again, where he has this moment at an end of an episode, and he seemingly dies, and we don't know if he's alive until the next season?
Yeah, might as well. He's the Kenny of Westworld. I think that would be such a bad ending for the character.
Because he can't. I don't think he can be dead. I don't think you kill him off in a post-credit.
Well, they would bring him back through the host, William, that comes out and kills him. I thought that would have been a good opportunity to bring in Jesse Simpson, young William. That would have been cool. But that's the iconic look, and it's also a nod to the first movie when you had the Man in Black robot just killing everybody. But yeah, no, that would be a terrible... And him storming the Dubai headquarters just by himself with a gun, and they have one security guard there. It feels so anticlimactic for that character. He's been one of the main characters. He has such a role in how the society was formed, and he says it. That's his greatest sin. He wants to atone for his sins. And you build him up for these 8 episodes to kill him off in an end credit scene? I can't. No.
No
way.
I think the thing I really do like about this finale is how it sets up a potential season 4 if William is alive and you have Bernard doing what he's doing, whatever he found out in the Sublime, and with Hale set up as the new Dolores enacting this master plan, and you have Caleb and Maeve kind of trying to usher in a new world order. I think that's all very interesting.
Yes, yeah, no, it is.
The thing is, how they got there was no role for William and Bernard to play. And if maybe that kind of takes a season for them to have a bigger role in the grand scheme of things, then I can probably forgive it more in hindsight. But the thing is, we're not going to know for another 1.5 2 years. So it's hard not to feel disappointed in those two characters, especially since they've been such staples of the show.
Yeah, and I want to go to Serac real quick because it didn't look like he died at the end there. He was still trying to talk to his robot buddy, who was completely erased. What did you think about his ending in this episode?
What do you think of the reveal?
Of him being controlled by Rehoboam? I loved it. I thought it was something that could have been revealed in like episode 4 or episode 5, and I think it would have made Rehoboam feel even more intimidating. That Serac was his own man, but he just became so enamored and so convinced that this machine would save the world that he speaks word for word what this machine is giving him. I thought it was creepy. Because at first I'm thinking, oh, is that Rehoboam? Serac's not real. But he's so brainwashed.
It's kind of a different way to explain that theory that people had that Rehoboam is controlling Serac, where we think it's a host or a projection. No, he's a human, but he just takes his orders from Rehoboam like he does with everybody else. I don't know. I kind of think I would have rather have Serac be like the mastermind controlling him being the puppet master rather than Rehoboam, but...
Well, in a way he kind of is, but yeah. He's a puppet for Rehoboam, but he built Rehoboam and with his brother.
Or maybe they work in conjunction with each other.
Well, it's more like it's a machine. Well, my favorite line is when Serac is mad at Maeve for not telling him about Caleb. And she goes, "You're the one with the oracle, darling. So you should know these things." It's a machine that it can probably predict what anybody is going to say. But it was just cool in that moment to see how in sync those two characters were. Bringing Ford back in the previously on Westworld, I thought we were going to see Ford, but his dialogue about, would you be the hero or villain in this scenario? And they play with that with Serac in this episode as well.
Yeah, when he shows Caleb the actual plan, and kind of Caleb, he goes, "Why me?" And I think the audience feels that way too. Why you?
Yeah, why
you? And I think the explanation of him being the two sides of humanity in one, like I said before.
He's got to be ready for that okie doke, though.
I think I would.
Of course Dolores doesn't have the key in her mind. And of course it's the plan that they want to upload into Rehoboam in her mind. Serac, you genius. They didn't see that coming. I guess he's too reliant on Rehoboam, and he couldn't see that coming. He said he couldn't predict Dolores. But what were you saying about Caleb?
I think I might have rather him come up organically as a leader, where maybe they're separated, maybe Dolores and Caleb, for about 4 episodes, and they do the data leak earlier, and he kind of naturally arises as a leader of the revolution, and they come together via that way.
Yeah, no, I think that would make sense too. To Dolores to just completely break the world, and Caleb seeing all this chaos. That's really what it was. She brings him along, and she shows him what's happening in the world, how these people are being controlled. What happens if you turn all that off? How they go absolutely crazy. And that's the situation presented to Caleb, is do I want to put people back on these paths with Rehoboam, or do I want them to just figure it out on their own? And that could cause the apocalypse. And I guess the point for a lot of these characters in season 3 is to kind of sit back and watch Dolores. Dolores can only convince them that she's right if she shows them. She can't just sit down and have a conversation with Maeve. She has to show her how bad humans are, how far they've gone with Serac and Rehoboam. And the same thing with Caleb. Caleb may be just one of many candidates for this job of leading humanity. He just happened to be in Dolores' path. So it's more of a, I have to show you for you to believe this and for you to understand where I'm coming from and understand what I want to do. I feel like I'm not giving them enough credit because they have established a lot of things between those two characters. It just came off as weird. All the decisions, all the conclusions that were drawn by certain characters, specifically Maeve. I think Maeve is just...
Some people were upset with her motivation that, yes, she wants to see a daughter, and it's kind of, and she explains it to Caleb in this episode as, he has something he promised me, and I want it, and I can't live without it. And, sometimes it's not a simple motivation, it's she wants to be with her daughter. That's something that could drive anybody. But I feel like having that, the way it played out over these 8 episodes, that, I don't know, maybe she should have got a sense earlier on that you shouldn't trust Zarek. Or, I don't know, maybe hear out Dolores. Maybe that conversation was purposely saved for this episode when it's something that could have happened a little earlier.
And I guess it goes to the idea of having a choice and that these characters are able to, in a split second, kind of change their motivations and their paths. That's the advantage, I guess, of being a host. But the Sublime and her returning to the Sublime, once again, it just feels like Maeve is such an awesome character. And she was awesome in this episode, Dolores getting the better hand of her. The fight between Dolores and Serac's men and then her versus Maeve part 2 was great. And I also like the reveal of all the hosts kind of just being copies of Dolores. She's like the first man. Yeah. And it's funny because Maeve, people always made the point, if you take off the M.A., that's Eve. It's the first woman.
Well, the episode as a whole, I mean, just aesthetically, technically, was amazing. I loved all the action set pieces. The way Dolores was kind of controlling the Rico app in real time and kind of basically developing the strategy to infiltrate Insight. And just the whole vibe. I like how they kind of took this pristine cleanliness of the world that we were introduced to earlier in the season and kind of showed it for what it really was. And then having this chaos ensue and these violent protests and with all the smoke and the lighting, it had a very kind of Blade Runner feel to it as well. And also with the way they were, a lot of people were saying the comparison to Fight Club at the end when they're watching the buildings explode.
Right, yeah.
I kind of got that even earlier on where I said to myself, that reminds me of Fight Club when they're coming up to Caleb and they're calling him Sir and he's kind of confused and he's just controlling this kind of cult around him.
Yeah.
It had that kind of feel to it too. And I really enjoyed all that stuff.
But Maeve and Dolores fighting, Dolores wins, she walks away, then Charlotte Hale shows up again as a hologram and stops her in her tracks so that Maeve can bring her to Insight where Dolores was already going. So Hale just inadvertently helped Dolores by having Maeve overpower her, bring her there. There was no resistance. She's hooked up to Rehoboam. Plan's finished. She just won. I think that's also another problem I have with the season is that everything she did just worked flawlessly. There were little hiccups in her plans throughout the season.
Well, I mean, she did die.
She did die? No, yeah, but okay. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Well, yeah, so he hooked her up. They were siphoning through her memories, deleting the memories, and I thought that was a interesting look at death. And I think they talked about that a little in the post-show, and you can kind of relate it to a Bernard scene he shares with his wife, and we'll get to that, and even with Caleb last episode, when he said they took their memories away from him. Without your memories, who are you really?
Right.
And that slow, painful drag of just deleting everything that made Dolores who she was. It was an interesting take on like torture and killing somebody.
It was disturbing to watch them just get wiped out. Those little blips on the screen, and she seemed like it was painful for her going through that.
And we talked about what Dolores wanted with Rehoboam, if she was going to upload herself into it as a way to control and kind of work in unison with it. But the way she did it was she went into the system, locked Serac out, and...
Yeah, she gives Caleb control, and he completely erases it. The final command. Poor Rehoboam. What's up with Bernard having the Force, that he can sense that Dolores is dead? I guess they're twins, maybe? They have that connection?
Yeah, they're machines.
Yeah, no, they're machines. Well, everything with Bernard, going back to the beginning of the episode where it leaves off, where William pulls the shotgun on him, shoots Stubbs, and Stubbs isn't doing too well when we visit him again in the hotel room. But Bernard, this is what puts him on the trajectory of finding Arnold's widow.
Yeah.
Which was a good scene. But Lawrence showing up as a member of the San Francisco Police Department. Hey, Lawrence. It gives him the briefcase, right?
Yeah, it gives him the briefcase to access the Sublime. And Bernard, again, just so...
confused.
Just on the outside of everything that was important about this season. But like I said, if this is going to be the key to the rest of the seasons, then we'll have to wait to see how that plays out. But just in a vacuum here and now, not thrilled with Bernard this season.
Well, it goes back to Dolores bringing back Bernard in season 2. She said, this is the decisions that we make because we do have free will, where you are my adversary, but I'll bring you back. And he was unsure of it, but she kind of had to show him what humanity was going to experience with this apocalypse. And I guess in a way she anticipated that her feelings might change. So if they did, the best person to have the access to human immortality would be Bernard. And I guess that was just a good call by her. But it's similar to Caleb, where I'm not going to tell you everything. I kind of just have to show you. And you have to come to these conclusions on your own. It's similar with Ford and Dolores. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to show you. And then you're going to shoot me in the back of the head. I don't. What did he do this season? I can't. It was cool when he fought. I like that.
He found Stubbs. Couldn't find Maeve.
Yeah.
And
Couldn't find Maeve.
Well, I guess that's that.
Yeah, that is true.
Drunk some beer in a hotel room. Well, gave Stubbs the beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and was just trying to counter Dolores, but was a step behind every time.
Is Charlie a big thing that weighs on him? Because I don't think he was thinking of Charlie once throughout this season before he...
He did when he passed that kid on his
Okay.
way into the motel. But I really like the scene with Bernard and Arnold's widow. I guess I was a little confused, though, when I guess she's dealing with maybe dementia or Alzheimer's, where she didn't recognize him right away. Then she realized it's Arnold, but maybe she thinks it's a vision or a dream or whatever.
Right.
Because it wasn't like, holy shit, Arnold, you're fucking dead. It was kind of like almost like she knew what was happening, but maybe didn't really.
It worked for the scene.
Yeah, but it was very emotional. Jeffrey Wright was fantastic. I mean, the dude can just flat out act. That's kind of why I'm so upset he really didn't have much to do this season.
Well, Tandy Newton is the
talent.
same thing for me. She's such an incredible actress, and at times she's just standing there, just delivering funny one-liners. Like I said, I love the line about the Oracle, but that's really mostly what she was doing. But Bernard
Charlie,
holding on to Charlie, him letting go of Charlie, is that what inspires him to go into the Sublime? That was the thing holding him back?
Not entirely sure. I think it was something to do with giving Bernard closure on the most human side of him, was that even though his son never existed to him, or the version that he remembers, it's just something that grounds him in his humanity. It's his cornerstone, and it's such a powerful aspect of his life that even though he's never technically met this child, it weighs on him each and every day.
Isn't it? It's William this season that kind of calls him a cheap copy of Arnold, right? It's always felt like he's trying to live up to, I guess, Arnold's expectations or what people thought of Arnold. So I guess it would make sense that he would kind of have to move on from the thing that destroyed Arnold's life in order for him to take on the role that is destined for him, if you want to put it that way.
I did like when she called him Arnold and he looked like heartbroken.
It's everything he always wanted, but then it broke his heart. I am Arnold, but no, I'm not.
Stubbs is probably upset. Just left him in a bathtub.
Well, that's the thing. If Stubbs can die, he's probably thrilled, but he's probably just going to be there in pain until Bernard gets back. And who knows how long Bernard has been gone for? Months? Years?
I was trying to think. How
long
long?
Does time work in the Sublime?
How long can you leave an idle setting for it to get that dusty? Gotta be, I think, years? I don't know.
Yeah, so that scene, I don't know if he's waking up in the Sublime or if he's waking up in the real world. He's returning from the Sublime, and he's got his information, and that's the...
Yeah, I think it's him waking up in the real world, and it's probably a time jump. I don't know how long. It's, I guess, maintenance at this motel, isn't a thing?
Well, Bernard going into the Sublime to...
Ever had to lend that room out again?
No, yeah, that's it. Do not disturb in perpetuity. It goes back to the scene in the end credit scene in season 2 where William is kind of being tested for fidelity, and Marissa had the theory that maybe hosts have taken control and they're trying to bring humanity to their level. And that would also speak to Bernard going into the Sublime and trying to find this key to immortality. Is that the way that you kind of recode humanity, like Serac was trying to do? Reconditioning, but not in that brutal way, not kidnapping people and holding them against their will and keeping them as prisoners and then fucking freezing them if they fail. Although at the end of season 2 it didn't look like the best place to be. Kind of did look like a rundown facility. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by that quest for Bernard in season 4. Why is he going into the Sublime? How do they react to him?
My biggest, I guess, biggest anticipation or what I'm waiting to see in the next season is A, how much time has passed between the two events. B, how is this revolution going? Like, if there is going to be a time jump, what does the world look like now? Is it some Mad Max post-apocalyptic world where you kind of look back and be like, hey, maybe Sirach's world wasn't that bad?
Yeah.
And kind of shit won't hit the fan too much. And instead of kind of building it down to build it up, they just broke it down. And they're kind of waiting for Bernard to come to maybe build it back up.
Yeah, my question is, where's the government in this? The government's got to step in and try and do something, right? What does Sirach do in season 4? He's still the owner of Delos. He's still a trillionaire. I don't know. Does this scandal make him lose all his money? Does he go crazy because Rehoboam is gone and he just kills himself because he feels like he's lost? I don't know, but Vincent Castle's character is not dead. So that makes me believe he will be back in season 4. Doing what? That's a big question for me because he's still out there. He's still alive. Maybe he goes to Solomon. Yeah. Remember, Solomon had that line that was cut off. He said, I must warn you. Mm-hmm. And then all the power cuts off. So I must warn you, Sirach's got a backup. There's these Rehoboam Part 2 out there.
Yeah, or it could be the future that Rehoboam showed Caleb this episode. I don't know. I think all in all, I think this episode is one that's probably going to sit with me for a little. I'll probably change my opinion on it, given some time to try to process every little detail, and maybe the more information I get about a season 4, or even until a season 4 does come out, and kind of reflect back on it. But I think there's a lot of good, some things I very much enjoyed, and kind of leading up to a potential season 4, 5, and 6. But like we mentioned, some other things that I'm indifferent on or I just didn't like.
Yeah, I think this episode, this season, warrants a rewatch, especially this episode, because I would like to do a part 2 just to kind of get into it deeper, maybe go an hour and a half, scene by scene, because I think there's more to piece together than we can really get to in just kind of these, not laid back discussions, but a general review of the episode. But as a TV production, I thought it was a very good season. I enjoyed it. And yeah, what can you say? It's going to be another 3 years. Talk about the time jump for them. The time jump for us, it's going to be 2 or 3 years before we get back into this world.
I don't know, 3 years.
Oh yeah, because the world's going swimmingly right now, right, Aaron?
All right, well, I guess we'll see you in a year and a half.
Guess we'll see you next spring.